Welcome everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining the online panel discussion organized by the Hong Kong Life Science Society. I'm Cyrus Chan from the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park to serve as a moderator for today's sections. Today's topic is on why and how to become a biotech entrepreneur. So before I introduce the speaker for today, I would like to share with all of you some of the house rules for today. So make sure that you switch on your camera so that we can see your face. If anyone has some questions, please feel free to raise your hands. There's a raise a hand button in the Zoom meeting, so you can click it, or you can type your questions in the chat box. If you have further questions, and you can actually email to register at hklss.org. So we'll get all the information and pass to our speaker as well. All right, so without further ado, let me give a very quick introductions of our speakers for today. So today we are very honored to have Dr. Eddy Wu, the founder and CEO of Arctic Visions, and also Mr. Stanley Sy, the CEO of Sanomics, to serve as speakers for today. So Dr. Eddy Wu is the founder and CEO of Arctic Vision, specializing in technology for medical needs in ophthalmology. He earned his bachelor degree and PhD degree in biochemistry at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Eddy began his career in Novartis in Hong Kong and became the medical director of Asia Pacific, Middle East, and African countries. He continued his career in Shanghai as executive director of Allergen, and later on as a China head for China Biotech Company Limited. Stanley Sy is the CEO of Sanomics, a local biotech company located in Hong Kong Science Park, and aim at revolutionize current cancer treatment by providing safe and efficient liquid biopsy-based genomic tests to patients. He completes his bachelor degree in electronic engineering and MPhil in biomedical engineer at Chinese University of Hong Kong. He works as a consultant for IBM prior to his career in Sanomics, where he has successfully expanded service line and established new labs in Wuxi, Thailand, and Vietnam. In 2020, he established Aurora Tele-Oncology, and another biotech company that provides patients with an oncology-specific telemedicine platform that can improve their cancer care and treatment. So this is a brief introductions of our speaker for today. And I do believe that everyone is very excited to understand a bit more about their story. So at the first place, I would like to invite Dr. Eddy to introduce, to give us some of the insight of his career aspiration. Eddy, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm Eddy. I'm Eddy Wu, the CEO and founders of Arctic Visions. So first of all, thank you very much for the invitations, and also thanks very nice introductions of some of my background. Thanks to chairs as well. So hopefully within this 15 to 20 minutes, I could give everyone, all the participants, an overview of some of my career path, just as an example, how a Hong Kong student can be in the industry. And I would also try to target the answers to most of you may in your brain that why, as a Hong Kong growth educated student, then ultimately would be landed in Shanghai to be the bioentrepreneur there. And maybe I will share some of my understanding and also some of the insights could be around what would be the challenge and what will be some of the daily difficulties of be a CEO in this industry. So hopefully these sections could be very helpful for you. And if you have any questions, as our moderator and our chairs introduced it, you could ask me questions afterwards as well. So yeah, maybe please go to the next slide, which is some of my background and the summary of my career history and some of my career path. As I already mentioned, I grew in Hong Kong and I educated in Hong Kong. To be honest, I have no overseas study experience till I finished my PhD degree in Hong Kong. So I spent around 7 years in Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, studied biochemistry bachelor degree, and also finished the PhD degree over there. But after I finished my PhD, I realized myself I'm not an academic guy. So I don't want to be a professor in the futures at that moment. So I decided to join industry. But at that moment, there was no so many example for me to take the reference. So because most of my seniors students or some of the other graduates from the same science school, most of them, they are joining the postdoc program or study overseas further or to be an assistant professor in somewhere. But there are not so many people joining the industry straight from PhD. So yeah, I was young, so I got the courage from somewhere, I don't know where, but ultimately I joined the industry and as the medical associate in Novartis. And then I spent several years over there. I got promotions and as to be the medical advisors, mainly in charging of the clinical study and the medical affairs to educate the doctors to how to do the study, clinical study, and also educate the doctors how to use the new treatments as well. And then I got the opportunity to move from Hong Kong to Taiwan. And then I spent around 8 years over there. I learned the healthcare system in Taiwan, and also I learned some Mandarin over there as well. So before that, I could not speak Mandarin. This was really helpful. Otherwise, now I could not survive in Shanghai. And then I moved from Taiwan to Basel, the headquarters of Novartis. You may know, you may heard about Novartis before. It's one of the biggest pharmaceutical company in the world. So I was very fortunate. I got the opportunity to in charge the regions called Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa countries. So you could find from the slide, the light blue color map was the country I in charge of before. So in total, more than 90 countries. So you could imagine how crazy was it. I have to travel around the world at this moment. I spent around 6 years in Novartis headquarters. I in charge this area, mainly focusing on the clinical development, medical affairs, and health economic as well. But I found Switzerland is really a nice place, very, very good in terms of the air conditions, in terms of the landscape, but very boring as well. But the major reasons I decided to move from Basel to Shanghai is because I would like to pursue my career in a place that I believe that I could have a better development. So I made a decision to move from Switzerland to Shanghai around 7 years ago. Some of my friends thought I was crazy because, you could imagine Switzerland is a very nice place and my position over there was not low. You could imagine that I handle all the countries I listed over there. And also, as you can imagine, 7 years ago, the Shanghai's condition was quite different from now on. So 7 years ago, the Shanghai's air pollution was a problem and also quite noisy as well. And all the others policy was not so favorable in terms of the industry policy as compared with current situation. But I believe that I made the right decision because I learned quite a lot in Elegant joining this company. I learned the device market here. I learned the regulatory policy over there. And I also learned how to start my career, my biotech careers by joining a biotech called Turns, helping them to start up the company from a scratch perspective. And then finally, I raised the capitals for them. And also I built my own team. This is a kind of my rehearsal of starting my own business. And then around 2 years ago, I started my own current company called Arctic Visions with the support from the venture capitals, for example, Nanfeng Group and also Morningside and LVC in the last 2 years. So maybe we can go to the next slide. This is just a glance to show you what is our current company focusing. So as you may know, my company is focusing in the ophthalmology area. So on the top of the slide, this is just showing the history since we started officially in 2019 till now, around 2 years. We raised 3 rounds of capitals. In total, is close to $150 million US, and we already get a quite rich pipeline. At the bottom of the slide, you could find that now my company has the first suprachoroidal space injections treatment for treating uveitis, treating diabetes macular edemas. We have the world's first microdosing technology to treat myopia and presbyopia. And we have the potential, the first cell therapy to treat the endothelial cornea dysfunctions. And we have the innovative FDA-approved device for treating the dry as well. And just this month, we sponsor Hong Kong University to develop the neuroprotections therapy for the glaucoma patients as well. So you could imagine all those achievements are just happened within these 2 years. So I'm quite proud of it. But this is the another questions I would like to answer here. Why I turn out to be the entrepreneurs and the CEO in China and grow up this company, as I can demonstrate to you. Before I talk more about myself, I would like to answer this question by demonstrating to you a model I always thinking from the analysis perspective. Maybe we can go to the next slide. This is the business model introduced by Harvard Business School by a professor called Bob Simon. So why I landed in Shanghai and start up the ophthalmology company? I believe that this is a thinking models. Every student, maybe you can think in this way. What is your capability? What is your perspective? That means how the other people think about you. And could you find the profit possibility? So as I demonstrate to you my career path, I spent a long history in the medicals and clinical development. And also I spent quite a lot of my energies in the ophthalmology space as well. So I believe I have a strong capability in ophthalmology. And also I got some startup management experience in the past as well. So in the past, I create some of my perspective. Maybe you can call it credibility in this area. And also now the China is a booming business in terms of the industry from the technology perspective. And based on the aging populations and also based on the middle class upgrade, I mean from the expenses perspective, this is another angle for me to think about it. If I would like to concentrate my energy to one spot, then I would like to concentrate to develop an ophthalmology company in China to contribute my capabilities. But also because I was very fortunate, I was very lucky. I got an image, the VC, the medicals, hospitals, and also our potential partners believe that I'm a trusted partner as well. So otherwise, they will not support me from the capital perspective, product perspective, and also from the collaboration perspective as well. And obviously, this is really a profitable area because now the population is growing, and also this is a policy very driven market as well. So this is also demonstrates to you why I decided to land the company in China and make the decisions. So in fact, on top of that, I would like to show you some more as well related to China's. Maybe next slide, please. So this is we can stop here. This is okay, no worry. So so in fact, this was the report written by US around 3 years ago. They comment about the Made in China policy 2025. This is the white paper drafted by America. In fact, they already point out that China has the ambitions to change their biotechnology industry from the manufacturer role into a driver role. And the Americans at this moment, they believe that the position in the biotechnology leader position could be challenged by China. So this is the big environment driving all the capitals, all the attentions from the policy to these areas as well. And also, if you can check on all the investment happening in China, the numbers or in terms of the dollars, this is already higher than the total amount in the US. And another reason is also the talent as well. In the last 10 to 20 years, there are a lot of, we call Haigui or some overseas studies students, they move back to mainland. So this is already create an ecosystem for China to develop the whole industry. You know that working as a company, you could not survive alone. You have to rely on the other partners as well. For example, like clinical research organization, CRO, or other service vendor. If you do not have an ecosystem, this would be extremely difficult. But now the ecosystem is already there. So I believe that I partly demonstrate to you what is the reason behind I choose China as my starting place of Arctic Visions. And then the ultimate questions, I would like to use maybe 1 minute to or 2 minutes to answer this. What is my daily challenge or what will be the difficulties to be a CEO or entrepreneur? I always answer these questions to some of the students or some of my friends who are interested to be the CEO. In fact, CEO is the most easiest job in the world. So what you have to do is to plan from A to B. This is your visions, missions, and ambitions. So you can start from scratch and then plan it and then set a B as your objective. This is your main job. And then you have to find your team, money, all those things to fulfill this goal. But then, okay, you set this, and then what you have to do daily is to every day you wake up and then wait for the bad news. This is the CEO job. So you plan from A to B. So for example, I would like to be the ophthalmology leaders in the world. This is my B, and I start from A. And then every single day I wake up, I would wait to see, okay, what is the bad news coming to me? What is the difficulty I have to overcome? What is the challenge and I have to overcome? And what would be the solution I could provide? So this is your daily jobs to solve all the problems. But please bear in mind that you have to stick with your previous, the decided ambitions and visions, and you could not change it. Otherwise, you could not make your company successful. So CEO is the most easy job in the world. So just make sure that you are very insistent in your ambitions, visions, and also you have the capability and brave enough to face everyday challenge. So I could answer more about the CEO life during the open sessions or the question sessions, but I hope my brief introductions, take me as examples, could provide you some of the information about China's, about the industry, and also about myself as well. So thanks again for the opportunity for me to share. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Eddy. Excellent sharing, and we definitely learn a lot. I do believe that our audience are very excited to learn more about from you. And during the Q&A section, don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask questions and type the questions in the Q&A box. So for next, we are very happy to have Stanley, Mr. Stanley Sy, the CEO of Sanomics, to give us a brief sharing. Stanley, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you, Cyrus. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here, and thank you so much for the invitation from HKLSS. And I think I do have a very strong vibe with Andy. Because what Andy just mentioned, the main role of CEO is just waiting for the bad news every day. Yeah, I'm so glad that you can share my message and my mind in my heart and in my life. Yeah, and I think so glad to hear that. And okay, back to the discussion topic today. I'm so glad that I always share some of my vision and passion about entrepreneur. But let me sum up first. I can tell you, as a biotech entrepreneur, I think it's very tough. And you may see a lot of very successful person in on the IPO or on television, but trust me, this is you always can see the hero on those kind of scenario, but just for 1 minute, right? And I don't think you can imagine how tough and how hard they experience in the past 10 years. Yeah. So every time when I share the experience with all the students, I would the first sentence I would give them is that we really have to take serious consideration whether you really want to take this kind of challenging journey. It's very tough. Yeah, I heard that you always heard from your professor, so some lecture that, oh wow, it's very exciting. You have to be entrepreneur, right? You can win a lot, right? But I would say that nowadays it's very tough. But I don't say that you have to give up. But I just want you have to get well prepared and well preparation, like just Andy just mentioned. You have to get prepared. That is not an easy role, and you have to get preparation to solve. I think a problem at every second, not every day. Yeah, you cannot imagine how much problem, how many problem you have to face in your career path. Yeah, and regarding the proposal problem or the question for the first year, why and when when and how develop a new technology into a product and enter the market. Yeah. So regarding this question, I would say that the only one thing you have to consider that whether your technology can have a real scenario to help the patient or help the industry or help the society. Because actually you can see a lot of, I think all of you have studied a lot of paper, right? You can see that when you search on the web, like a wiki or some big journal, you can search tons of paper that they always mention that they have a huge and very sexy technology, you have a sexy patent, right? But honestly, how many of them they can really transfer as a real product, plus they can really help the patient or really help the industry? For example, in agriculture industry, right? Well, we have a lot of technology. We have CRISPR, right? We have a lot of things, but how many they really can convert like the productivity or the production of the agriculture, right? And you can hear a lot of good clinical technology, right? But how many of them they can really pass through the FDA, the NMPA, the EMA, and finally they can localize, right? So regarding the first question, I would say that once you really want to entrepreneur, the first thing you're not thinking about how great your technology is. The only one thing is how your technology can really become a clinical solution. That means that really can help even a small problem that really can help your client or the society. For example, I think all of you have heard the story of Professor Dennis Low, right? You can imagine at the very beginning, the technology we call the NIPT, right? I think it's a very, some of that, to sum up, it's a very, just a one sentence, right? You can find the baby DNA fragment from the mother blood. It's very simple sentence, right? But I think the key point is that they can really create a scenario. First, you can imagine, wow, the scenario is we have target on woman, pregnant woman, and we can target that in a prenatal status. We can help the baby whether they have Down syndrome, right? It's a very simple question, but regarding the three answers I just mentioned, is very important because you can know how long you have to run away for your technology or entrepreneur. If not, for example, you may have some supplement, right, or some kind of ingredient. Wow, the ingredient can help you to elong your longevity. The ingredient can help you to reduce the wrinkle, right? But it's very hard to avoid a scenario because, for example, longevity, it seems that everyone wants to get a longer longevity, but it's not specific, right? I would say that for nowadays, for all the entrepreneurs, not just biotech, even fintech or like some raw AI, right? I think the most key point is that you have to very specify the using scenario. I think the first thing is not about how technology, how sexy you are. And the second thing is that the challenge and opportunity become a biotech entrepreneur in Hong Kong, right? I think the good thing is that you have to thanks for the Hong Kong government about the Hong Kong DX. We have 18A chapter, right? Because while a long way for biotech entrepreneur, we always encounter a problem is about money and capital, right? I think Andy has the same experience before, right? Every day you have to think about how, wow, I still need a lot of money to finish my FDA approval. Where I think it's always a paradox, right? You have a good technology, but before you get to enter the FDA, you cannot sell your technology, right? But you still have money to burn the FDA process, right? So that's a kind of chicken and egg problem, right? So, but I think thanks for the 18A chapter, they create a really good platform and exit window for investors that they are willing, they're willing to risk your technology. Because regarding this, every end investor, they know that, wow, I can see the end point of my investment, right? So I would say that in Hong Kong, the best thing is that you never have to think about you do not have the money, because there's a tons of capital market channel in Hong Kong, family house, equity fund, banking, personal investment. I think there's tons of ways you can find, as long as you have a good idea and you have a good execution plan. Remember, the most difficulty of entrepreneur never about how great your plan, but it's how great your execution. For example, if you want to implement a technology, right? I will ask if I investor, right? You just a fresh graduate. Why you think you can get success? So we'll say, okay, how you can get your patent, how you can get your approval, how can get your GMP facility, how you can get your scientists, how you can get your company license in China, right? So if I were you, if you want to become a good and successful entrepreneur, I think the feasibility of the execution plan is very important. For example, what Andy just mentioned, because you can see a huge market in China. I think everyone will mention this. Wow, China is a huge and great market. If you can earn $1 for every person, you can earn about 1.4 billion RMB, right? It's very sexy, right? But the truth is that if you get lost for $1 for every person, you will lose 1.4 billion RMB every year, right? So I think a lot of investors, they would want to see about how well prepared you have done for your execution plan. For example, if you want to open a branch in Shanghai, Wuxi, or Zhejiang, right? How you can make it happen? For example, if you're at Hong Kong, or if you're a resident in Hong Kong, or you're a resident outside China, how you can make it happen? And how you know that the insurance package, for example, we call the 七險一金 right? 七險兩金, right? They want to know right how you make, but because a lot of, according to my experience, a lot of previous entrepreneurs, they focusing on their technology, but they just overlook that there's something that very important, execution, right? So I think the challenge is that for Hong Kong students, that you have to, I mean, you cannot get bias just from the market. You have to pay attention to the execution. You have to play a very detailed minded on your planning, on how to recruit, how to get the license, how to get the money, how to get the bank account. I think this is very important. But I think this kind of training, I think, is quite limited in your campus or in your university, because I think as a biotech student in your school, I think no matter CHK, UST, Hong Kong U, they will just tell you, wow, this is sexy, CRISPR, can change, CAR-T, whatever. But they never tell you that as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of long technical things you have to do. So I think this kind of mindset you have to get well prepared. And the final thing is that how can students prepare they want to become an entrepreneur? I think just what I mentioned, I think the first thing is that you have to make sure that you really want to take this a very tough challenge. Honestly, okay, sometime I just have a circle gathering with some entrepreneur just last week. Honestly, 90% of them, they will say, if I have a chance to get back like 5 years or 6 years before, they will switch to be employee instead of a CEO or an entrepreneur, because you have to sacrifice a lot. It's really a lot. You have to sacrifice your family time. You have to sacrifice your peer group time. You have to sacrifice your health. You have to sacrifice a lot of things. So the question is is it really worth to sacrifice all the things that you miss to train like become a or 1 or 2 minute CEO thing? Yeah. So I think the first thing is to get prepared your mentality. Remember, as an entrepreneur, simple to say, it is just a gamble, right? You never know what is the result at the end. But the point, before you get the result, you have to try all your power, all your resources, all your effort to hang on until the end. So I always, a lot of people ask, how, Stanley, can you just summarize how can any formula to become a good entrepreneur? I always mention that. In entrepreneur, you never has to become the best, but just survive till the end of the game, then you will win. But you have a very great mentality that to overcome all the discouraging message, all the discouraging result. But trust me, until you can hang on until the end of the game, trust me, you will win. But when you get back to return to see, wow, you have a lot of things. So, but I think it really depends on your personality. If you really think that you're okay, I'm fine as long as I can help the world, I can change, I can disrupt the current practice, I can sacrifice all the things, I think definitely you're a good entrepreneur and you will get prepared. But on the other hand, I think not every biotech student, they have to become entrepreneur, because as Percy mentioned in the very beginning, actually you have a lot of different roles in biotech. For example, CRO, CRA, as a sales and marketing, CFO, or like a scientist, right? So I think become an entrepreneur, I think the first thing you have to clarify that whether you really has to become the CEO or the founder, or you just want to enjoy. For example, some of my mentors, they really enjoy to do the lab work, but it's very hard for them to become a management, a whole company, right? So I was saying that the first thing is not about, wow, you have to study your PhD. You're not going to study MPhil, but get prepared and very clear thinking and clear consideration whether you really want to become an entrepreneur or you just want to part of the entrepreneur. So hopefully I spent around 10 minutes. I hopefully that you have give a brief picture about how a biotech entrepreneur is. It's very tough, but I think it's very fun, right? You will get a lot of fun for the process, man. And hopefully later on in the free chat section, I can share more about your concern and share my insight to all of you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Stanley. Thanks, Stanley, for excellent talk, excellent sharing. I do believe that your message is very clear and articulate very well. I do believe that students gain a lot from you. Thanks. So I think to move on to the next section, so I'll have a very quick introductions of some of the support that we have in the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. You may be aware of Hong Kong Science Park is actually located in a beautiful campus in Sha Tin. If you like cycling, you will be passed by this beautiful campus. So what we are doing is to build the biotech ecosystem, and specifically when you talk about biotech ecosystem, we need an incubation program. So that's why I'm here. So the incubation program of the biotech track is called INCU-BIO program. It is actually a 4-year program focusing on providing sort of like one-stop service to the biotech startup company. So on the right-hand side, you can appreciate that we have the nice biotech ecosystem. In our park, we have over 150 biotech company, ranging from not just startup, but we have some small, medium enterprise. We have some listed company in the whole ecosystem to kind of like build the ecosystem and work together to provide opportunity for licensing and co-development. We do have shared equipment. We do also provide professional coaching to every single startup to help them for commercialization and for those overseas companies for local integration. We also provide some funding support. In the middle, you can appreciate that we provide up to 6 million Hong Kong dollar for your R&D work and regulatory affairs. Please be reminded that this money is sort of like no strings attached model. We don't take any equities and we don't share the intellectual properties with the startup. So basically it's a grant to the company. All right, so next slide, please. So a brief, that's a snapshot of what we have in our IncuBio program. We do not have quite a lot of companies, a handful, around 30 something company in our program. So basically we focus on different areas on therapeutics, including small molecules, biologic drugs. We do have some pipelines on cell therapies and also gene therapy. A handful of company works on diagnostic, including in vitro diagnostic kit, IVD, or lab-derived tests. We also have medical devices company ranging from a wearable device to, like a medical device software. Other companies would include traditional Chinese medicine, vaccine, and some advanced biotechnology, including biomaterials. Next slide, please. Apart from working by ourselves, we actually work closely with a lot of partners and create the whole ecosystem together. Indeed, we work closely with KingMed Diagnostics, which is a public listed diagnostic company in China. They are very, they have the expertise in diagnostic area. So with that, we create a co-incubation program with the KingMed Diagnostic on your right-hand side of the slide. So they would provide mentorship, professional coaching to our startup, and they do have some facility in Guangzhou and investment arm to invest on the diagnostic startup. On top of KingMed Diagnostic, we also partner with multinational pharmaceutical companies. On your right-hand side, you can appreciate that we work with AstraZeneca. I do believe that everyone knows AstraZeneca, right? The vaccine, one of the vaccine provider. However, in this collaboration, we work not on vaccine, but more on an oncology solution. So we work with AstraZeneca. They will serve as a mentor, and they will provide the global network and also some network in China. On top of that, they can introduce some healthcare innovation stakeholders, including VC, service provider all over the world. So we hope to create the ecosystem together. So next slide, please. So for biotech startup, we have the funding, we have the partners. We got to provide some space for you guys, right? So we have the co-working space located in Hong Kong Science and Technology Park on 6th floor and 7th floor. Next slide, please. So we have a nice co-working office. We have these interacting area. We have individual meeting rooms. We have individuals office for each of the company. And we also provide some co-working open bench for the young entrepreneur to interact. Next slide, please. And a level above the co-working office, we have the co-working lab, which actually provide an open lab to allow those biotech startup company to do their wet lab work there. Next slide, please. We do appreciate that startup company do not have quite a lot of resources. So with that, we provide a centralized facility. We have over 130 advanced equipment ranging from mass spectrometer to next generation sequencing to high throughput screening, microscopic equipment for all the startup to use. Next slide, please. So on top of this shared facility, we also provide surface to each of the startup. We have the biobank, which provide a facility for storage of your precious samples. And in the like big data era, we do appreciate the use of the data. We have the bioinformatics platform to allow the startup company to store and use a cloud-based analytic tools for their research. We're in the progress of building a drug safety center, which is essentially a toxicology lab for all the small animals and also for in vitro toxicology. On your right-hand side, far right, we do also have some pilot batch production for all these cell therapy startup company. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot of what we have. I think I can skip this slide, thanks. Next slide. On top of these, infrastructure, we also provide a lot of interacting educational webinar. We work closely with different partners to talk about the ecosystem, to talk about some specific topics like gene therapies. Next slide. And we also work with different partners. We work with the CRO PDD to talk about the oncology drug development, to talk about the access strategy. We also work with KPMG to talk about ESOP fundraising, tax issue. We also work with medical device CRO to talk about medical device regulatory landscape. Next slide, please. And recently, we also engage into different international, association and accelerator. We work with Illumina Accelerator to talk about how to start a biotech company. We work with the ethics in entrepreneur, who actually describe how to get a startup with ethical issue. I'm also happy to serve as a speaker in Asia Healthcare Innovation Summit. Next slide, please. So we are building the biotech startup community. We have a lot of visits from different students, from different groups, from different government officials as well. Next slide, please. So I'll sum up my presentation with this slide. I do believe that right now, Hong Kong does have a biotech ecosystem. We have the translational infrastructure to help all these biotech startups to make the idea to a clinical validate product. We have the clinical trial center in Hong Kong. And we do, as Sunny has already mentioned, we have the pre-revenue IPO chapter that attract a lot of VC to invest into the startup. So with that, I'll close my presentation. Thank you. All right, so I think I'm done with my presentation, and now I think time is almost ready for the Q&A section. All right, so any questions from the audience? All right, so okay, so I find some questions from the audience. So question one, how does a startup pharmaceutical company compete and overcome the challenges from big pharma, which have better resources, better manpower, better technology, etc.? So I guess these questions to Eddy, right? Pharma. Over to you, Eddy.
Okay, I'm happy to take it. So I may be in good positions to answer this as well, because I work for big farmers, and also I established my own company as well. But to be very honest, I believe that not every single advantage go to the big farmers or the big companies. Small companies, small biotech, or small scale company, they have their own advantage as well. And don't always think the other players in the market or are your competitors. Maybe they are helping you as well. For example, if there is no other players in the market working for ophthalmology, only relying on Arctic Visions, we could not educate every single doctor in the world. We cannot create a market only by ourselves. So then that means we can leverage their resources as well. Okay, can get back to your questions directly. How to compete with them? So if you remember, if you listen to what my sharing, I believe that it's not only talking about your own person, it's talking about your company as well. Remember the 3 cycles I'm using: your capability, your perspective, and the perfect area, and your profits profitability area. As a small company like our side, what we can demonstrate is we are moving very fast as compared with a pharmaceutical company. This is our capability. We have the talent space. The employees over there all have around 20 years pharmaceutical industry experience. They have very strong executions capability, but they don't want to work in a big pharma because of the bureaucracy and the slow in action. So this is the capability we already demonstrate. And we have to show to the world, to the external, we have this image, we have this capability to do so as well. This is also, we have to create our perspective, create our perspective as well. So we have to demonstrate to the external that we are not only lip surface talking about we are moving so fast, but we are really acting so fast as well. So this is the reason why I demonstrate to you, start from 2 years ago till now, we did a lot of achievements based on a very small company. To be honest, if a big company to do the similar achievement could be quite difficult. It's not because they do not have the capability, it's because they have several layers, many layers. In Novartis, there are around more than 100,000 employees in the world. Then how could you move this elephant so fast? But I'm not an elephant. We are a very small ant now, so we can move really quick. So, and the third part is where they're talking about the profit possibility area as well. So if you would like to compete with the big farmers, you don't want to find an area to have the head-to-head comparison. You should find an area maybe they are not paying attention to at this moment, maybe, or they do not have the enough infrastructures, or for example, while we are competing with a pharmaceutical company, global company, to be honest, they don't know the China market better than us. Then that means at the same time, this is the same questions to you, all of you as well, the student. The big pharma, do you think that the big pharma company, they know the Hong Kong market better than you? I believe the questions could be very clear to provide the answer. I believe you know Hong Kong much better than the pharmaceutical company. Then you have to utilize your advantage and then to find a space, to find a room to make it turn out to be profitable. So, I mean, again, I just want to conclude my answer is don't think all the players in the market is your competitor. You can leverage them as well. But how to find your focus is always the key questions to yourself.
Well, thank you, Eddy. You articulate very well the niche, the speed, and identify, you know, like how unique you guys are. Thank you for sharing. All right. So to move.
Can I supplement one sentence?
Absolutely.
I want to echo with Eddy. Yeah. So one of the example I think is very successful example. We call the Jacobson. So for example, actually for the biggest bill payer for the drug in Hong Kong, of course, is hospital authority. And as you may know, for the criteria or the standard of authority, after the patent, right? Whose price is lower, then you will get the bid. And Jacobson in Hong Kong, they did a very good job. No matter although they don't have any very proprietary drug, but actually they have a lot of, for example, we call the Me Too or generic drug, but they do get a lot of profit and revenue every year in Hong Kong. And just echo what Eddy, I don't think other international players, they will know the game. Even like AstraZeneca or Sandoz, right? They cannot fully compete with Jacobson. So I think all of you, it is very worth to take a time to understand the Jacobson model. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Stanley. That's a very good complimentary to Eddy's view. So to move on, we have quite a lot of questions. Okay, so questions from Peter. So he has 2 questions. What attribute do you think is the most important to an entrepreneur vulnerable? And in an industry where it takes decades for product to be approved, how do you keep your investor believing in your company's future? Wow. Okay. So especially if you're not, if you have a lot of competitors. So how do you keep your investor believing in your company future? So maybe this time, Stanley, do you want to share a bit more about your view?
Sure. So I think one of the key point is, again, you have to prove your execution. Okay, for example, you have a great drug to tackle the Alzheimer, right? So recently it's a very hot topic, right? Biogen Alzheimer, right? I think for the mechanism, for the tau beta thing, I think every biotech student will know what does that mean, right? But you may have a great idea how can supplement or to change the tau beta, right? But the point is that how you prove your execution plan. For example, first, they will ask whether there's a biologic or small molecule drugs, right? If you think, okay, for example, you think it's small molecule drugs, so they will ask how you can manufacturing, right? Or at the same time, whether which partner you collaborate with. For example, you tell the investor, I work with one university, but they don't have their local hospital. So definitely that would be a disaster, right? So again, you have to keep proving. I think while during the investment role or during the we call it fundraising role, remember, you are not going to give the right answer immediately to investor, but you have to give the right pathway to the investor and prove that you are on the pathway, right? Remember, kind of dreaming. I already mentioned that fundraising is kind of dreaming. You provide a dream and the hope to the investor, and the key point is that how you can to prove it step by step. Okay, for example, you may heard FDA phase 1 preclinical, IND, phase 1, phase 2, phase B, phase 4, right? This is a pathway, right? And you can never say you can get a success until you are past the phase 3, but you have to keep moving, right? One of the motto, a slogan I always share with my mentees is just keep thinking, keep moving, then you will keep solving the problem, right? So do not think that, because in the entrepreneur role, it's not like examination, right? You have 60 minutes, then you have to answer the question, then you have to make sure no, definitely not. You have to keep improving. For example, if you study the clinical trial, you know, for example, for phase 1, you just likely maybe 10 or 20 to 50 people to enter the study. For the phase 2, you may need 100 to 200. You can see the scale, right? So I think in biotech entrepreneur, remember, you have to prove the progress rather than you have to prove the answer right immediately. Yeah, this is my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Eddy, you have any thoughts on how to keep your investor believing in you?
Yeah, so I believe that Stanley already answered this clearly, is that we have to prove ourselves and then to make sure the track record. So to be honest, please bear in mind the investor, they are very simple. They're making investment. So that means they would just like to make sure that they have the return. So you have to demonstrate that you are believing, you are doing what you promised. This is what really important. But I would like to answer these questions maybe another angle as well. To be honest, you may think from this, your business or your ambitions is not being picked up by the investor. It's how you pick the investor from day one. So, you know, I always have a very strong mindset. We have to choose the investor, share my same missions, share my understanding, and also share my ambitions as well. From day one, I'm really clear that, for example, like my company, I'm not interested to doing any biosimilar or generic drug or low-cost ophthalmology treatment. To be honest, those type of statement is really clear, but that means you are already scared away some of the investors if they are not sharing the same missions with you. But as Stanley already mentioned, capital is over there. You could always find the money if your vision is really clear and if you find the people that are sharing the same missions with you. So please make an investment or the investor relationship is a long-term game. It's not only short terms to make sure that you got some money and then you could start your business. To select your investor correctly as well, to make sure they share your same missions, they understand your business, and they believe in you, they trust you. This is the most important part. So if there is just something policy change or environment change, you know that there's always up and down, and then they will lose the belief in you. Then this is not really the long-term investor you should work for in the longer term. So I hope that we can think in another way. If you believe your ideas or your business is a good idea, then don't worry about, don't doubt yourself. And then to make sure that the investor is going with you and you are making the investment ultimately to be the return. So this is the role of the entrepreneur as well.
Oh, thank you sharing, Eddy. This is a very good, overview, setting good milestone, sharing the same vision and similar vision with the investor. All right. So to move on, we have quite a lot of questions. So I guess this question to both Eddy and Stanley. Is it necessary to have a research background capability in your team to start a biotech startup? Or you could hire researchers or university to do preclinical, clinical work for you as long as you provide realistic data. All right, this is a very practical issue. How to start? Do you need a clinical or research background? So maybe Eddy, you want to address this question first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because I'm more from the research background and medical background. But anyway, I believe that as entrepreneurs and the CEO, it's very easy to fall into the mistake is that because you have the background in one specific area, because you are too focusing on one area, then you lose the focus of the others important. As Daniel already mentioned, as an entrepreneur, you have to know everything. So for example, I have to know about the economic as well. Otherwise, how can I do the fundraising? I need to do my commercial planning. I need to talk with the investor. I have to know all the manufacturing as well. And I have to know the global relationship. And also now we have to learn about AI because this is turned out to be the futures as well. So anyway, you need to know all the things, but you could not be the expert of everything. So please pay attention to what you are missing and what you have to to gain in the futures. So to be honest, there is absolutely no to this answer. You do not need the research background. But if you have the research background, then that means while you are building your initial team, then maybe you should spend your money or your energy to recruit or to find a partner which can compensate you. This is very important. But if you are not the research background, if you're a business degree, then you have to find a partners to work with you for to contribute more the research knowledge as well. So that's you know what is your drawback and what you are missing is more important than what you have. Because to be honest, I'm not a finance guy, so I have to hire my CFO. I'm not a sales and marketing, so I need to have my commercial head as well. So what you are missing is more important than what you are being at this moment.
Very well taken, Eddy. So, Stanley, you have any thoughts to chip in? Thanks.
Yeah, I think I would just, before I elaborate my answer, I would just give one example. If you want to open a restaurant, whether you really become the cook and whether you have to really become the captain, right? So remember, as an entrepreneur, the best thing is that you want to make something happen, right? Doesn't mean that you really have to become the engineer or become the producer, right? For example, for example, for every IPO, right, you have a lot of sponsors, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, right? Trust me, they never know about biotech. But they know the game. They pull everything together: the lawyer, the auditor, the entrepreneur, the professional judge, Hong Kong EX, right? So remember, as a leader or as an entrepreneur, as a CEO of a company, the most important thing, just as Eddy mentioned, that you are not, trust me, never actively to do something that belongs to your colleague, right? You have to trust your partner. You have to trust your vision. You have to trust your intelligence about the hiring, right? You have to hire the right person to do the right thing. For example, just a restaurant. Okay, I'm an investor. Just imagine I'm an investor of restaurant. For example, I love Sichuan food, right? But I'm a people in Hong Kong, right? But I cannot imagine I would be a good cook of Sichuan food or Sichuan cuisine, right? So the first thing, you have to find the right cook that can work well for you. Secondly, okay, you know that, okay, as a restaurant, you need some captain or waitress, right? Because you cannot imagine that you are the investor already. How come you can dedicate the restaurant for 24 hours? That just become a waitress, right? And finally, you have to get a promotion, right? Okay, trust me, I'm never a good guy on some artwork like Photoshop, AI, or whatever. I mean the Illustrator, right? But I need something to help me to do, for example, Instagram, Facebook, right? But again, I think as an entrepreneur, you have to think the task first, right? As in keep thinking. Moving means that you never have to touch yourself unless you want to do it, or you don't have any money, you have to become a one-man band. But if not, you have the capital. Moving means that you have to find your effort to find the right person, right? Trust me, you have a good intelligence, you have the good person, then you will solve the problem, right? So trust me, as a standard examination, as a standard lecture, right? It's a kind of journey, right? You never know what happened next. Just what Eddy mentioned, I totally agree. Just wait and see any problem and anything you have to solve every day. I think this is the most important sentence I want to share to all of you.
All right, thanks, Stanley. Team dynamics is very crucial to the biotech startup. I hear you. You articulate very well. So I think we got quite a lot of questions. So do please send your questions. If we cannot address all, please send it to like Presley, Virginia. They can handle that question and share with the speaker. So last questions, actually from myself. Okay, so it is now a golden age for biotech, including the involvement of investor. Do I think there are enough investors that can truly understand the value of biotech startup, since it requires a lot of technical knowledge in order to evaluate the potential of the companies? Of course, Eddy and Stanley can chip in your thinking, but I'll take that questions. Right now, I would see there's some changes in the environment, thanks to the Chapter 18A. Everyone is looking at biotech, from drug to IVD to diagnostic to medical devices. So I would say right now I can see more investor interest when they interest, they are willing to learn. And in their team, as Stanley and Eddy mentioned, they may not necessarily know exactly the technical stuff, but they will engage different consultants, they will engage different PhD to help them to look at the case. So I would say right now, Hong Kong is very ready. And there's a lot of investors who knows about tech. Eddy, Stanley, you have anything to chip in Hong Kong, biotech investor?
Eddy, maybe I take the answer. I try to answer this question. Yeah, but I think just echo what I mentioned at the very beginning of this section, right? Remember, before you really want to become an entrepreneur, trust me, do not just think about the sexy technology, the sexy concept, but you have to make sure that your passion to solve the problem and to have clinical application or what we call the scenario, right? For example, okay, if you think, okay, I just want to get the money, I would suggest that you better to do the investment, or you want to just buy the stock rather than become an entrepreneur. Trust me, I think among 100 entrepreneurs, I would say just maybe less than 1% they can get a very rich man, right? You may think, wow, Animas is so cool, right? But trust me, Animas is just I think more than a million entrepreneurs, one successful. But I would say that if you just, I mean, as an entrepreneur, if you're just thinking about money, I mean, the purpose only is about money, I think you will be very depressed, you will be very frustrated along your journey, right? So if I think I just want to echo the Cyrus said, okay, right, we have a larger channel to get the money, right? But please be remember that money is not the purpose and never become the end point of an entrepreneur, especially biotech. The final pathway or final endpoint of an entrepreneur, you really want to help someone. You really want to change someone, right? This is the that's what I say. But simply to say, right? You're right. And the 88, of course, is a tool for every biotech because you can sell the investor. Oh, finally, I can 88, and you can liquid, and you can just release all of your investment, right? I think this is a very cliche nowadays if you want to become an entrepreneur biotech. But remember, this is not the only thing, right? It's just part of your pathway to get the success point. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. So, Eddy, what do you think about right now? Hong Kong is ready for investment of the biotech now?
Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously, Hong Kong, I believe, is not talking about ready or not. Is, to be honest, it's already a leading position in the world. So I could share my investor base. Then I believe that my company example is already a best answers to answer this question. So you know that now my investor base, Nanfeng Group, is one of my biggest shareholders. Nanfeng, I believe that you all know, or I believe that all the students are aware. This is one of the family office in China, in Hong Kong as well. And also, so Morningside is also my another investor. Morningside, the origin is from the Chan family from Hong Kong as well. Hang Long is also belongs to Chan's family, and also New Wealth Development is also my shareholder. So K11, Andrew Jen is also my shareholders as well. So I believe that this is part of my shareholders all are from Hong Kong, and they understand my business really well as well. To be honest, it's not only investing us in terms of money, they are also helping us to, for example, to expand my networks to the US side, in some of the ophthalmology company, biotech in the world as well. But obviously, I could not only rely on them, but so for example, like my investor base, I also have Royal Capital Value, who are very active investing in many pharmaceutical companies, and also is the biggest shareholder of some of the TMT, for example, like Bilibili, Toutiao Xinwen, is our shareholder as well. And also Tencent is also my shareholders as well. And also Octagon, who is the very active 18.8 US investor, is also invested in our company. So I believe that what I'm telling you all of it, in fact, this is not talking about the monies or the investor understand your business or not. In fact, the money, they would only find the best business. They believe that to invest and then to make sure that you are being successful. Otherwise, how could they get back the money, right? So how to educate your investor? and make your investor or shareholder as the resources to build your business. To bear in mind that they are not your boss. They are not like a company, your managers. This is not their role. They are doing the investment. You should treat them as your resources and then educate them to make sure that you can utilize their network, utilize their money, and utilize their status to ultimately benefiting your business as well. So if you like their money, but they don't understand your business well, then educate them. This is your role as well. So yeah, please bear in mind, they are not your boss. You are the boss. You are trying to educate them.
All right. Thanks, Eddy. And due to the time limit, we can't take all the questions. And if you have any further questions, please email to our register at hklss.org. So we'll pass the questions to Eddy and Stanley, and also myself to address all the questions. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Eddy, to serving our speaker. Thank you, Stanley, for your excellent sharing. And thank you, Hong Kong Life Science Society, inviting us to join this excellent panel discussion. So good night, everyone. Take care and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.